I was there with me.
This is Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
I'm the only lawyer ever to obtain a court ruling that a president of the United States committed a crime.
For truth, for competition.
As a young lawyer, I helped break up AT&T. That's why you have all your cell phones today.
For sovereignty, for the Republic.
I'm the guy who at Judicial Watch, which I founded, uncovered the Chinagate scandal. Millions of dollars going to the Clinton campaign, corrupting our political system.
For the privacy of citizens.
And I'm the only guy to have enjoined the National Security Agency from mass surveillance on hundreds of millions of Americans.
Tearing it up.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
Bringing it back.
We're going to take this country apart and put it back together again in the way envisioned by our founding fathers.
It's not just talk.
We're not just regurgitating news stories. Larry Klayman, special prosecutor, is making the news.
And now, here's Larry.
Welcome to this week's edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. Again, a very important show. We're going to have Sheriff Joe Arpaio on later on in this show with regard to a decision that was made by a federal judge who I used to think very highly of. I still, to some extent, do, but he himself has now taken a dive on a case involving Sheriff Arpaio, where Sheriff Arpaio was defamed as a convicted felon, which he is not, by CNN, Huffington Post, and Rolling Stone. And it tells you something, because when the best judge of the worst, I add right now, Royce Lamberth, takes a dive, you know that the federal judiciary is compromised and corrupted. And that's a problem, because the founding fathers put them there to protect us from the tyranny of the other two branches of government and the tyranny of ourselves. And Jefferson predicted this. He said, you can't have federal judges with so much power that are unelected, because ultimately they will wind up doing whatever they want, and it will not do it on behalf of the people. And when I see Judge Lamberth, who I had a high regard for, take a dive for political reasons, because the sheriff is so radioactive, the left destroyed him, or for whatever reason, which certainly would be improper. As I explain coming up in our third segment with Sheriff Arpaio, he deserved his day in court, and he did not get it. But let's talk about some other things that have been going on here with the deep state. They're a compliment to the federal judiciary in terms of taking this country down at this time, and that is the COVID-19 continuing crisis. Just this week, it was reported that the intelligence agencies, our so-called intelligence agencies, or so we say lack of intelligence agencies, revealed that 45,000 Chinese in the city of Wuhan, where there was a biological virus lab, the only one in China, and where in our class action lawsuit that I brought in Dallas, Texas, we allege this was a bioweapon, which is not subject to immunity because communist Chinese would have violated international conventions and treaties over producing bioweapons. And also they violated the World Health Organization regulations and not giving timely notice to the world of what was going on. But our intelligence agencies report 45,000 Chinese incinerated in the city of Wuhan. That's probably a low estimate. Now, why does this come out just now? Our intelligence agencies have massive surveillance capabilities. It's been trained on Americans, hundreds of millions of Americans, for years. Edward Snowden revealed that. I got 2 preliminary injunctions enjoining mass surveillance, which the judge, Richard Leon at the time, called almost Orwellian, on 2 occasions. And yet, they couldn't use that mass surveillance through satellites, through internet, through human assets on the ground. We have plenty of people that speak Chinese that are embedded in China, that are our spies. Why is it that we just find this out? Well, the answer is that our intelligence agencies obviously kept this from the American people. And the big question is, what did they keep from the president? Did this deep state, the CIA, the NSA, the director, the Defense Intelligence Agency, the Director of National Intelligence, did they keep this from the president to set him up with regard to the coronavirus scandal? So the Democrats could later claim that he didn't act fast enough. Or did the president actually get a briefing and not pay terribly close attention because he was going through the Democrats' impeachment proceedings at the time? Much like Bill Clinton didn't pay attention to Osama bin Laden when he was being impeached. And I'm not in any way defending Clinton. I mean, he had 40 scandals, a completely corrupt criminal along with his criminal wife. But he was diverted because of that, no question. This is the big issue. Now, put that in the context of Senator Richard Burr of North Carolina, the head of the Senate Intelligence Committee, and Dianne Feinstein, senator from California, who used to be the head of the Senate Intelligence Committee, who's still on that committee. Given the fact that they sold millions of dollars of shares of stock and made millions right before the coronavirus was known to be as serious a threat as we know it to be today, they must have had intelligence briefings at the time that, in fact, there had been a leak of this virus from the Wuhan lab in China. So what does this tell us? It tells us there are many different moving parts here, that it's not just the World Health Organization, but it's our own intelligence agencies who likely, again, just served this country for their own ends and set the president up to lose the next election. Now, in my view, a lot of people think that I'm crazy. Okay, a lot of couch potatoes that read WorldNet Daily. Not many. Most people agree with what I'm saying. But, like people like to be big shots, and they say, oh, Klayman, he's paranoid, Trump's going to win in a landslide. The president's not going to win in a landslide. You can bet that the vice presidential candidate of Joe Biden is going to be either Michelle Obama or Hillary Clinton's going to make a return visit. There are 20 million people, independents, who will decide this election. And the president is dependent upon them for election. If he just loses Pennsylvania or Wisconsin or Michigan, notwithstanding Florida or some other state which is close, he will not be the next president of the United States. Now, here's another factor to put in there. You can be Sean Hannity and you can be the modern day Tokyo Rose. Probably some of you don't remember who Tokyo Rose was. This was a female that spoke perfect English that would publish propaganda in World War II. I wasn't alive then, but, I know about it because I'm a historian of sorts. And to try to influence thinking. Or maybe Hermann Goebbels and Hitler. Well, you can be Sean Hannity in today's world and spew forth BS minute by minute, the same monologue week in and week out, and say the president has never done any wrong, that he's been perfect. He's been a perfect 10. Nobody's a perfect 10. Larry Klayman's not a perfect 10. I'm sorry. I make mistakes. And the president's making mistakes right now because one day he has this message. COVID-19 is no problem. Next day, oh, it's a big problem. One day you should take this medication. Next day you should take that medication. That he's getting the whole matter so confused that people are losing confidence. He needs to stop these press conferences, number one. But number two, the American people are not getting their paycheck protection checks fast enough. I don't know anybody who's gotten any money from the government with regard to their unemployment claims, with regard to their businesses going out, small business, etc. President is in serious trouble, and the polls reflect that right now. Now, couple that with the fact that Roger Stone is out there, campaigning for a pardon. And I've said this in prior shows and in things that I've written. Stone is not a good person. Stone's a bad person. And I don't care whether Comey or McCabe or the Lovebirds or anybody else haven't been prosecuted yet, because Freedom Watch is prosecuting them. We don't expect that fat blowhard over there at the Justice Department, William Barr, to do anything. He does nothing. I don't know what he's doing. Maybe he's sitting there eating Big Macs or something. It looks like he's probably gaining, at least in that way, but he's not gaining in prestige or actually doing the right thing. So if the president goes ahead and pardons Stone, these independent swing voters, the stench that Stone left behind, and Manafort and Gates, there was no Russian collusion. But the fact that the president associates with these people who lie, cheat, and steal, convicted felons, that's a problem. And if you start pardoning convicted felons, then you're going to have a real problem with the independent voters. So the president, I urge him not to pardon Stone. Let him do some time. He won't do the full 40 months. They'll put him in a prison where he'll be safe. He's not going to die. It's not a death sentence. Stone says, well, I've just found God. The next day said that he goes to a strip club. I don't think God hangs around strip clubs very much. But this is, something the president needs to seriously consider because he's not in good shape right now. And if he goes down, the whole country goes down with him. The vision of our founding fathers, the creation of the last 240 some years, making this a great country. And then layer that on top of the fact that he's not taking firm positions with state governors who are continuing to keep our economy shut down and everybody quarantined. We're going to have social unrest. We're going to have people breaking into your house because they don't have money, stealing and robbing. It's going to get really bad. And there's no end in sight to this coronavirus. So I caution the president. And last but not least, you've got to support our class actions. I mean, we're the only ones that are really doing anything. Our case in Dallas, Texas, against the communist Chinese for 21 trillion plus in damage that they've caused to this country, to not just our finances, but our health. Our criminal case in The Hague, Holland at the International Criminal Court. Our case in Jerusalem, Israel, which is moving very quickly. We have experts that will testify that this is a bioweapon, coronavirus, COVID-19. So we're doing something here. Our Justice Department is doing nothing, as usual, doing nothing. And Hannity gets out there and says, oh, look at all the great things that our government's doing. Gee, there's justice around the corner, bringing on his same worthless guests every night that don't do anything. Or they sit there and, munch popcorn and pontificate. What have they done? Have they done anything like Sheriff Arpaio or Justice Roy Moore or Laura Loomer or Jerry Corsi or many of my other clients? They haven't done squat. So please support Freedom Watch. Go to freedomwatchusa.org. Support our class actions. Sign up for our class actions. Support the criminal cases. Share this radio show and my podcast every week because you are the clarion call. You are Paul Revere. We need to save this country, and we need to save the President of the United States, and he should listen to my advice and to the advice of others that mean him well. I'll be right back with the second segment of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman.
Dangerous.
Don't care. Use the court and the law.
Lethal.
This is bad.
Special Prosecutor
Very bad.
Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
Now let's talk a little bit more about COVID-19, the coronavirus. There are many scandals out there, and Freedom Watch will be dealing with them. We've previously indicted Robert Mueller. He'll be tried once we can bring people together for a citizen's trial. I can assure you we will get him convicted, sentenced, and we'll seek to carry out those sentences peacefully and legally. We'll do the same with regard to Comey, with McCabe, with Strzok, with Page, with Clapper, with Brennan, with the Obamas, with the Clintons. Okay, we, the people, need to rise up. We've had it. There used to be a movie many years ago called Network where somebody stuck his neck out a window and said, I can't take it anymore. The American people can't take it anymore. And this coronavirus is putting things in a different perspective. Yes, we appreciate the fact that most of us are still alive, but we also appreciate the fact that our government has disserved us. Since 9/11, we knew, and even before that someday there would be a pandemic and or biological attack. What have our successive presidents done? What did George W. Bush do? Nothing. What did Bill Clinton do? Nothing. What did Barack Obama do? Nothing. What did Trump do for the first part of his presidency? Of course, he was preoccupied with 2 witch hunts and impeachment. Nothing. What did the state governors do? Nothing. Everyone knew this was going to happen. And in fact, I remember after 9/11 that we thought we would get hit with a dirty bomb attack. I actually put plastic on my windows in Great Falls to protect my family. This was recommended. We thought there would be a biological attack. And what's happening now with COVID-19 is such an easy way to try to destroy populations that you can expect that terrorists are going to try the same thing. It's not very hard. And you have to be a complete idiot to think that a virus like COVID-19, which mutates every time it moves from person to person, which has infected so many people throughout the world, you have to be an idiot to think that this just came from some bat, okay, that was transmitted to a human. It was manipulated. It was engineered in this lab in Wuhan, China. We have many experts that will come forward and say this from around the world, in our case here and our case in Israel. And there'll be cases elsewhere. And that's why we need your support, because there are other lawyers that are contacting me from all over the world, Larry. We want to do the same thing. So please contribute to our cause. We need the tax-deductible contributions. Go to freedomwatchusa.org and sign up for our lawsuit and also contribute. But, you know, this defies intelligence. And the fact that the government won't come clean, won't tell us the facts of life, that continue to prevaricate. It's not enough for the president to call this a Chinese virus. That's not enough. Why isn't he instructing his attorney general to join in our lawsuit with the full power of the federal government? Why didn't he freeze the assets of the Chinese so we can collect the judgment once we get a jury verdict? Why isn't he doing that? I've been asking him to do that. Is it because his buddy Roger Stone says don't listen to anything Klayman says? Maybe. Because you know what? It was real this week that Stone's been in constant contact with him over the years. And that came up during the trial as well of Roger Stone. You know, I love the president, but when you hang around people like Stone, Manafort, Gates, and Michael Cohen, when you hang around, you know what? Poop, you start to smell like it. The president needs to move on, and he needs to level with the American people. What the Chinese did was criminal. It was criminal, and he needs to support what we're doing as well. But it was also reported that the Trump organization has lots of loans that are outstanding that are coming due to the Bank of China. Is that why he's hesitant to take strong action against China? Or is it because the intelligence agencies have blackmailed him yet again? I don't know. I want to support this president. I do support this president. I've been doing it for 3 years. I haven't asked for anything in exchange, not even a retweet of anything that I tweet. But the fact of life is the president's hanging by a thread, and he better shape up or ship out right now, because he will be shipped out if things continue the way they're continuing. And if you don't want to hear the truth, if you just want to swallow the Kool-Aid, go back to your couch, you know, gorge yourself to 300 pounds, drink a lot of alcohol, and pass out. But if you want to do something, join Freedom Watch and support our class action. So just sign up for our Justice League, get up off the couch, put the food down and put the booze down, and get to work, because if you don't, we're not going to have a country much longer. We cannot depend on anyone, including the President of the United States. We've got to do it for ourselves. I'll be right back with Sheriff Joe Arpaio, an American patriot who did it for himself and paid the price for sticking his neck out like all of my clients do. I'll be right back.
And now, 4 words that make corrupt politicians make wee-wee in their little pants.
Transparency and the rule of law will be the touchstones of this presidency.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
Be the one who makes our country great again. Go to freedomwatchusa.org and donate.
I'm back with my client, my friend, a great American patriot, Sheriff Joe Arpaio, America's toughest sheriff. In fact, he's running for re-election in Maricopa County. I support him personally. And of course, he's someone who's very special because he stands up to the establishment, the powers to be. He's a great friend of the president. The president is a friend of him. And it's a love fest between them. But I'll tell you what isn't a love fest are the federal courts. And I've often said, figuratively, tongue-in-cheek, that when the revolution breaks out, the first to be taken to the guillotines should be the federal judges. But there was one federal judge among many that I actually respected over the years, and that was Judge Royce C. Lamberth. When I ran Judicial Watch, and after, he made a number of very positive decisions. He held the Clintons accountable. He never put Hillary Clinton away. He could have done that. And of course, she's now rearing her ugly head again. She thinks she's going to be the vice presidential candidate of Joe Biden. God forbid for Joe Biden. He's nearly in the grave anyway, but she would certainly put him in there quickly, most people believe, and become president. Or there's Michelle Obama on the horizon as well. But to make a long story short, Sheriff Arpaio, after he was wrongfully convicted of a misdemeanor for violating a court order of a terrible federal judge in Arizona named Murray Snow, G. Murray Snow, who was heard saying that he wanted to destroy Sheriff Arpaio. His wife let that slip at a restaurant. After that happened, there were allegations made by the ACLU and by others, Covington and Burling, the law firm of Eric Holder and Lanny Brewer, former head of the criminal division, Eric Holder, Attorney General, that the sheriff had violated Judge Snow's order. And that's what gave rise to a misdemeanor finding, which ultimately was pardoned. And of course, we sought to have even the conviction removed, but the Ninth Circuit was not, as you might suspect, agreeable to that. But in any event, because he was called a convicted felon by the leftist media, which he was not, we filed a defamation lawsuit. And by the grace of God, I thought at the time, it went to Judge Royce Lamberth. Lamberth sat on this case now for a year and a half. These media organizations, CNN, Rolling Stone, Huffington Post, knew that Sheriff Arpaio was not a convicted felon. In fact, they cover him so closely because they use him as a, quote, bad example to get to the president on immigration policy. Of course, he's not a bad example. And we ultimately had an oral argument where Sheriff Arpaio was there with me on motions to dismiss by the defendants. And during those motions to dismiss, the defendants argued to Judge Lamberth, claimant did not plead actual malice with enough specificity. I said, what are you talking about, Your Honor? All you have to plead is that it was false or there was a reckless disregard for the truth. Now, these networks who cover Sheriff Arpaio so closely, they know he's not a convicted felon. So we pled it. But I said, but if you have any issue as to wanting to make it more specific, I can amend the complaint. To make a long story short, the judge sat on this for another 6 months or so and issued a decision where he admitted that what these networks said, these leftist networks, was false and were damaging to Sheriff Arpaio, but he dismissed it with prejudice, saying, I didn't plead it with enough specificity. Now, that was very intellectually dishonest because I had said, Your Honor, if you want more specificity, I can do that. So in effect, I chose to do that. I filed a new complaint with great specificity, and just a few days ago, he dismissed that one too. And by the time he got around to ruling, the statute of limitations on defamation had run in the District of Columbia, which is where this case was filed. So I went back to him again yesterday, and I said, Your Honor, I did plead the first time actual malice properly, but I asked you to be able to amend it if you didn't feel that way. You had no right to dismiss this with prejudice and allow the statute of limitations to run. And in addition to that, I said in an alternative way, if you don't want to accept this complaint, you can simply vacate the previous dismissal in case number one and allow me to amend. Well, he answered that one in less than 24 hours, probably about 5 hours, and he denied the motion. Now, if Judge Royce Lamberth is going to bail out and make intellectually incorrect decisions because my client, Joe Arpaio, has been made radioactive by the leftist media, or for whatever reason, whatever improper reason there may be. Maybe he doesn't want him in his courtroom. Maybe it's because Lamberth made a strong ruling with regard to a deposition of Hillary Clinton. He made the ruling years late. No one cares anymore if Hillary is deposed in a FOIA case, no less, not a real case. But this is what I saw actually to some extent when I was running Judicial Watch. He would couch things, make a strong decision, then try to placate, his impression with the leftist media. It's very disappointing because I had faith in him and I consider him a friend. I've never talked to him about the Arpaio case, but I've got Sheriff Arpaio on the line. I want him to comment on this because he's not a convicted felon. This is clearly defamatory. And in fact, another judge reached a similar matter and allowed a case to go forward, a federal judge, because a defendant was called a convicted felon when in fact he had only been convicted of a misdemeanor. And I pointed that out to Judge Lambert too. The sheriff I want to bring you in on this because this is a real problem, the federal judiciary, because if they do not protect us from the tyranny of the other two branches of government and the vicious leftist media or even the rightist media, Hannity, he doesn't tell the truth either. This is the kind of thing that the American people are left defenseless. And you actually have been wronged here. I want to get your impression about what went on.
Well, I was just thinking I'm toxic, but if I was a low-profile guy, probably not. He would have tasked, at least let us get to the trial and so on. But since I'm a high-profile guy, maybe everybody's being human, including judges. I guess they're human. But what hurts me, Larry, I spent 30 years with the federal government, 27 with the Federal Drug Enforcement, and I had high positions. And I always dealt with federal judges, state judges, but I have never seen what's happening in our country, and to me, in recent years. Never. And you're right. Something has to be done. By the way, you forgot one thing about the Judge Snow. His brother-in-law is a big shot in that law firm. You know that.
In Covington and Burling, yeah. Yeah.
And who do you think they're representing? The ACLU against Snow, his brother-in-law's firm. Now, how about that one? Where's the conflict of interest anymore in the judiciary system?
No, there's no intellectual honesty at all. There's nothing left at this point. And, you can do a Hail Mary in one case or another, but when you're Sheriff Joe Arpaio and when you're Larry Klayman, sometimes they don't want you in their courtroom because they want to go up to a higher, of course, Lamberth is he's in senior status. He doesn't hope to go anywhere after this. But, they're part of this club. They got their job because they're establishment. They got their job because people recommended them to the bench, usually on the basis of campaign contributions to senators or to the president. I don't know with regard to Judge Lamberth, and I still have good feelings. He did some good things, but I have to be critical. He's been critical of me from time to time. And that's what I wrote in my motion yesterday to reconsider. I said, Your Honor, you've been critical of me on occasion. Now the shoe's on the other foot. You did the wrong thing. This was not honest. And for whatever reason, you should correct it. But he wouldn't. He didn't have the humility to correct it. And within hours, he denied the motion for reconsideration. Now, I'm going to write a column at WND.com. You can find it at freedomwatchusa.org. I ask people to read it because this is the problem with the federal judiciary. And it's very interesting, too, because I'm writing a book, and I went back and I was looking at the Constitution. Constitution does not give judges lifetime tenure. It says they can serve for good behavior. That's not lifetime tenure. These judges have interpreted that as such. And nor does the Constitution give them immunity from making intentionally wrong or reckless decisions. In fact, who gave them immunity? Quote unquote, the Supreme Court. They gave themselves immunity and then gave it to the rest of the federal judiciary. You can't do that. It wasn't legislated. Congress didn't give them immunity. So if you were to remove the lifetime tenure and you were to remove the immunity, we'd have a lot more honesty on the federal bench. And that's what I'm going to be pushing for once this coronavirus thing is cleaned up. But, it's a terrible situation when judges in today's world are like the judges at King George III, and are very politicized yes men and are not protecting the American people, including you, Sheriff. And when that happens, you're in a revolutionary mode. That's what happened in 1776.
Well, I'm sure the judge heard of me and probably saw me for the first time when you suggested I appear before him. But I'm sure you and I had other dealings with that judge on another matter. So he finally got to meet me face to face. And I don't know, I think I looked okay. I was wearing a black suit with a tie and, no long hair. I was a professional FBI-looking type in the old days. So, but it's interesting meeting him personally when I never met him when you did something that helped me out.
Yeah, I did with a whistleblower, and we got that whistleblower immunity so he could come forward, and it impacted into your case in front of Snow.
But you know what, Larry? Donald Trump is on the right track. He's going to answer the judges, and he understands the problem.
Well, I got to correct you there, sir. I got to correct you there. He doesn't know who he appointed. And they were put in front of him by establishment Republicans. I'll tell you something. I've been in front of a number of them. Judge McFadden, Judge Kelly, Judge Altman in Palm Beach, Judge Friedrich in D.C. These judges do Trump appointees. Let me interject here. These judges have no guts. They have no courage. They're afraid of their shadow. They're establishment people. Trump does not know who he elected, or rather nominated. And frankly, they're little better, if at all, than the Clinton and Obama federal judges.
Yes. Yeah, he's taken the word of he's taken the word of the politicians that are here in the state trying to get their people as federal judges. He's taken their word, but it's too bad he doesn't. He should dig a little deeper and make the decision from what they get from the Washington level, not listening to senators and all these people that put their guys in there. That's the big problem right now on the job.
Yeah, they put a name in front of them and they say, sign here, rubber stamp, okay. He doesn't know who he's appointing. And even Kavanaugh's become a liberal because he's afraid he's going to get impeached. Something's going to show up more with the women that he allegedly harassed, which was complete nonsense. But that's who they are. They run for the exits because they are establishment people. They got their job by sucking up to politicians, by having their law firms, labor unions, or corporations, legally bribe the senators or the president to nominate them. The Wilmer Hale, the law firm of Robert Mueller, has 2 judges on the federal bench. They put out tens of thousands of dollars to get them on the bench. They've got 1 Democrat, 1 Republican, very convenient when you have cases, in the D.C. federal court. So this is what we've got. We've got an inherently corrupt federal judiciary that are politicians in robes. I've been saying that, and that's why I started Judicial Watch back in '94. But it's gotten much worse. Occasionally, you get a good judge. Occasionally, I've seen 5 in my, max in state and federal court, in my career. And I must say, I've been starting to file more cases in the state courts because those judges are elected and they're accountable. And they're much more agreeable in terms of letting cases go forward and go to trial. But the federal judges think they can do what they want with impunity. And that's the problem.
In 2009, I interviewed 12 illegals in my jail. There was another problem called the swine flu. And
Sheriff, we've got about 15 seconds. I'll have you back another time. But go ahead, give a quick take on that.
I investigated. When I went public on that, the same month, Holder and Obama started the investigation against me. Is that a coincidence in 2000?
No, it's not a coincidence. And just think of Cliven Bundy. That was no coincidence either. I'm going to be talking about that in days ahead as well. Sheriff, thank you for everything you do. You're a hero. You were much abused and maligned here, and we will be seeking justice.
Arpaio for sheriff.
God bless you.
Before he was a trial lawyer, he sliced him and diced him.
People used to ask me, Larry, what caused you to start Judicial Watch and now Freedom Watch, given the powerful forces in this country that put you at risk?
In a meat packing plant.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
A very special prosecutor, Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
We, the American people, need to rise up. We need, to the extent possible, to work with the government, but we really don't have a government. I'm sorry. And we don't have a federal judiciary that will stand up for our rights. And we've heard that with Sheriff Arpaio and went on with, the best judge who I thought would stand up for somebody, Royce Lamberth. Very disappointing. He's now been corrupted too. So what's the moral to the story? Is that we need not just to fight for our freedom, like our founding fathers did in 1776. We need to be truthful. We need to be candid. It's time to stop sales. In other words, let's stop the BS that we hear on cable news. Let's forget about stuff on social media. Let's forget about the scandal industry. It's become an industry. Fox News and the rest of them are making money hand over fist, like never before, with death charts about COVID-19 and everything else, people dying second by second. After one panic gets over, they come up with a new one. This week is there not going to be any meat for people to eat. I haven't seen any inclination that's going to be the case, and my family was in the meat business. I bought pork chops the other day for $3.39 a pound. Okay, that's hardly a meat famine. And just stop listening. I can't use other than the word BS. I would like to use a little stronger language here. Stop listening to the BS. Tune into what I'm saying, what a few other people are saying, very few. I don't know anybody actually, frankly, that says it straight up like I do, and my various clients. But we need to get to work, and you need to become a member of Freedom Watch's Justice League. You need to sign up for our class actions against the Communist Chinese, not the Chinese people. About 30% of our putative plaintiffs in our class action are Chinese Americans and Asian Americans. They're very patriotic people. I'm talking about the evil Chinese over there in Beijing, because as of right now, our president isn't standing up to them. Sorry, I don't know what the reason is exactly. I gave you a few ideas earlier on in this show, but he's getting rolled by the Communist Chinese, and we're getting rolled by the Communist Chinese too. We're emptying out our treasury. We're already bankrupt. We're going to be so bankrupt, our kids and grandchildren are going to be living in abject poverty. Talk about not having meat to eat. They won't have anything to eat the way things are going, just paying back interest for these loans. The government can't keep printing money like it's funny money and doling stuff out. But right now they need to dole the money out because the country's going down the drain. And you know what? The money hasn't even gotten to the people. That's how bad things are. And then we hear a different message from the president every single day. The stock market is crashing again as we speak. We don't know when anything's going to open up in this country. The governor of California just this week shut the beaches, shut the state parks. Unbelievable. People have nowhere to go. They're trapped in their homes. They're fighting with their spouses, their kids, their dogs, and things are coming unglued. So this is why what we do at Freedom Watch is so important, because, we just don't sit around and take it. We don't take punches. Okay, we're punchers. When we get punched, we punch back 100 times fold. And we need to really bear down right now, and we need to bring about justice with regard to the Communist Chinese. That's number one. Hillary Clinton, Obama's and everybody else can wait until this coronavirus is over. So you need to go to freedomwatchusa.org, sign up for our class action against the Communist Chinese, support our criminal case in The Hague, and also our case in Israel, which is going even faster than the one in Dallas. And everything that we get there is usable in the case here as well. Israel's on the front lines. They're a very small country. They could go under very, very quickly. They're our best ally. They are representative of our Judeo-Christian tradition. So I can't say it enough, and I can't say it too many times, is that either we all hang together, or as Benjamin Franklin said, we'll all hang separately. And please, take this radio show, take my podcasts every day, share them. You can find it on freedomwatchusa.org, on iTunes, on Spotify, on Roku, on Amazon Fire, on Facebook, on Twitter. Urge the president to share them. Tell him to forget about Roger Stone and to move on with decent people around him, not people like that. And God bless you. God bless your family. I want you to stay safe. I pray the same thing for my family. I pray every morning and every night. And we'll be back next week with another edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. Thank you for listening.